All right, hey guys, it's me, your boy, back for the second part of this tier list. I know it's been over a year, but what can I say? Life happens. All right, so this is going to be purely fighters from 1943 to 1945 that, of course, served in World War II. As you can see here, we have a very similar amount of tiers as last time. We have the Hall of Fame at the top, and then S through F. We also have a new column that I'm introducing, and that, of course, is that of jets and jet fighters, which, as we all know, are rather cringe. And so I'm just going to get those out of the way right now. As you can see here, I've done quite a bit of work on these little thumbnails. We have, of course, the name of the plane itself right here, and then we also have the flag of the nation that produced it. But I haven't even done those things with these jets because I absolutely hate them. So we're going to just put all of the little annoying jets up here and get them out of the way because we don't even really want to talk about them. What we came here for is, of course, and the main attraction is the piston engine fighters, some of the last of their kind that fought in the Second World War. So without further ado, we're going to start with the Mitsubishi A6M5. This, of course, was the most the latest version of the Zero, and I think it went into production sometime mid to late 1943. The A6M5, of course, the legacy of its predecessor. It did not live up to the legacy of its predecessor because even though the A6M5 was significantly better than the A6M2, which was the standard version of the Zero that the Japanese had at the beginning of World War II, the amount of modifications and the upgrades that it had weren't enough to keep up with Allied planes and the new generation of fighters, especially the Americans produced. And so the biggest problem with the A6M5 is in all of the later variants of the Zero, the Japanese hadn't figured out or had not upgraded the armor or the survivability of the plane. And that was always its greatest weakness. And the fact that they didn't adapt to that knowledge and didn't try to do something to ameliorate this is, part of it was just Japanese manufacturing could not keep up with American manufacturing. But anyway, this is going to go in C tier. It had decent performance and statistics. Of course, great range, like all Zero fighters. But at this point in the war, the A6M5 was outclassed by superior Allied fighters. All right, now we have the Bf-109K. This is going to be our first S tier aircraft. This is a later model Messerschmitt. These later models had very, very high climb and could operate at extremely high altitudes. And the Bf-109K in particular was also quite maneuverable when compared to Allied aircraft. It was, of course, again, some of the main problems with the Messerschmitt series were related to takeoff and landing. The landing gear of the Bf-109 was notoriously bad, but its performance in the air was supreme. So we're going to put that up there. Now we have the Bf-410. Now this is our first twin-engine aircraft, and besides the P-38, I take that back. There's another one we're going to have coming that's going to be pretty decent. But the Bf-410, we're going to put in B tier. It was decent at destroying bombers, but against actual single-seat Allied fighters, single-engine Allied fighters, it didn't really stand a chance to the better ones. So that's going to go in B tier. Oh, next up we have the de Havilland Mosquito. The de Havilland Mosquito is going in my Hall of Fame, and the reason why is because this was probably one of the very first aircraft that I fell in love with. It's my favorite twin-engined fighter / multi-role aircraft, and that's the thing about the de Havilland Mosquito. It wasn't necessarily the greatest fighter ever, but it performed a myriad of tasks throughout the war, including reconnaissance, including night fighting, including some bombing missions. It's just a really, really cool aircraft. There's two Rolls-Royce Merlin engines in this bad boy. It's fast, it's speedy, it's elegant. It goes in my Hall of Fame. Next up, we have the X6F Hellcat. The X6F, we're going to put that in A tier. It didn't quite have the speed. It doesn't quite have the speed to go in S tier, but it was a very sturdy, typical for an American, tough aircraft that was substantially better, as this tier list does a good job of illustrating, than its counterpart, the A6M5, at that time in the war. All right, and now we have the Fiat G55. That's going to go in S tier. And you know what? While we're at it, we're just going to put all of, where is it here? We're going to put all of the third generation Italian fighters in the S tier. This might be a little controversial, but the main problem that Italian aircraft had early in the war was armament. They simply didn't have the firepower to bring down the sturdier Allied planes. But the Italians, hats off to them. They figured it out. They put some cannons in these bad boys. The earlier Reggiani and Mach-E and Fiat fighters only had machine guns. They put 20 millimeter cannons in them. These have an updated and upgraded Daimler license-produced Daimler-Benz engine. These things were fast. They were maneuverable. They had firepower. If they could have produced more of them, it would have been a long war. All right, next up, we have the Focke-Wulf TA-152, another S-tier plane. This might be the most advanced single-engine fighter, or piston-engine single-engine fighter ever produced. Could operate, again, extremely high altitudes. There's nothing bad I can say about this plane. It's just an awesome plane. All right, FW-190D. I think I'm gonna have to put that in S tier, and for a little bit different reasons. Part of it was it was just sturdier than the it was definitely sturdier than the BF-109 and probably the TA-152, though I'm not really sure what the survivability of that plane was, but it's again just a great German fighter. As you can tell, by the end of the war, the Germans had kind of figured it out, and that's going to be another S tier plane. Now we have the Hawker Tempest S tier as well. This was a awesome, besides the Spitfire, the best British fighter produced during the Second World War. It had a really, really, really high climb, and also the maximum speed was somewhere in the neighborhood of 450 miles per hour. It had good armament. Again, little you can say bad about this plane. All right, now we have the Hawker Typhoon. Now the Hawker Typhoon, it doesn't deserve to go in S tier. I'm going to put it in my Hall of Fame. Yes, we have 2 British planes now in the Hall of Fame. The Hawker Typhoon was not the best interceptor, the best pure fighter, but it excelled in ground attack. And just look at it. It's just a meaty plane that could take a licking and keep on ticking. And, you see illustrations all the time where they have rockets and bombs underneath, and the kind of ground support, close air support they did in 1944 to 1945 after D-Day was probably unparalleled. Probably only the P-47 could compare to the Hawker Typhoon in terms of the amount of just raw damage and durability. So that's going to go in my Hall of Fame. Now we have the HE-219. Oh man, I'm gonna have to put this another Hall of Fame plane. I love the HE-219. This was, again, probably since I've been 10 years old or something like that. This has just been one of my favorite planes. I actually had a model of this plane. I had a model of the Typhoon. I had a model of the HE-219. And it's just a different. It was a specifically designed for night fighting. One of the very few planes built solely for that purpose. So yeah, I honestly, it would go in like A or B tier, but I'm just going to put it in my Hall of Fame. All right, next up, we have the J2M Raiden. This is going to be another B. This is going to be a B tier aircraft. Decent. The main problem with this plane was the performance wasn't great. Also, the protection wasn't great. And as you can see, by the end of the war, there were a lot of Allied aircraft that were better. All right, now we have the Ki-61. The Ki-61, I'm going to put in A tier. This was a decent plane. It had decent firepower, some better protection for the pilot compared to some other Japanese planes. But again, not the greatest performance. I think the max speed of this were somewhere in the range of 360 to 370 miles per hour. And, by the end of the war, most planes were hitting over 400. So not quite there with the speed, but was a great fighter. And also, this was kind of interesting. This is the only Japanese fighter that has a V8. All these other ones are radial engine. This is a V8 engine, so that's kind of interesting. All right, now we have the Ki-84. Ki-84 is going to be our only Japanese fighter in S tier, or at least right now. This was one of the best Japanese planes made during the Second World War. There are multiple accounts of Mustang pilots dueling with Ki-84s in the last weeks of the conflict. and them telling their superiors that the Japanese had a plane that was every bit as good as the Mustang or, comparable Allied aircraft. So that's going in S tier. Now we have the LA-5 and the LA-7. LA-5, I'm going to put in A tier. The LA-7, I'm going to put in S tier. Now, like a lot of Russian planes, these could be kind of difficult on the pilot, didn't have the best controls, but they were both of them were very fast. They had 20 millimeter cannons. They had pretty decent armament. The LA-7 was, of course, the later war version that was just faster and better overall. So we're going to put that in S, the LA-5 in A. And now we have, let's see, the Shiden. Shiden is another S tier. Very similar performance-wise to the Ki-84. These are the two best planes of the war. Yeah, we're putting them up there. P-40N, the last variant of the P-40 family, we are going to put that in B tier. The P-40N was definitely the best of the P-40 family, but because of the fighters that it was arrayed against, these extremely good Axis aircraft, it was quite underwhelming compared to most of these. Again, though, it was rugged and durable, and so that counts for something. We'll put it in B, but I can't put it any higher. All right, now we have the P-47 Thunderbolt, and the P-47 we're going to put in A tier. Again, like the Hawker Typhoon, this was probably better at ground attack and close air support rather than pure dogfighting, but it was still very decent. And again, like most American planes, probably its number one strength was its durability and how much it protected the pilot. And of course, now one of the most iconic airplanes of the Second World War, the P-51 Mustang, which is going in S tier. Perhaps even, you could argue, at the very top of S tier. There's a reason why this plane is so iconic and memorable. I mean, part of it is it's a beautiful plane just to look at, obviously. But the other part of it is it single-handedly changed World War II by giving the Allies a single-seat fighter capable of fighting all of the Luftwaffe's best fighters that also had the range to escort Allied bombers over their bombing runs in Germany. Without this plane, that doesn't happen. It single-handedly changed the course of the war, and of course, all of its performance and statistics, unbelievable. The one thing you could probably ding it on is, like most American planes, it didn't have any cannon. It only had machine guns, but the 650 cal machine guns normally were enough to shoot anything out of the sky. So that's its really kind of only weakness, and outside of that, outstanding. Okay, now we have the P-61. This is the Black Widow. I'm going to put this in B tier. This was another plane specifically designed for night fighting. However, if you look at the performance of the HE-219 compared to the P-61, the HE-219 is just much superior. This would have been shot out of the sky by most single-seat aircraft. It wasn't as maneuverable and didn't have the max speed that it needed. Okay, now we have the P-63 King Cobra. This I'm going to put in B tier. What's really interesting is a lot of these were given through Lend-Lease to the Russians, and the USSR actually used the P-63 to great effect in ground attack operations. And Russian pilots actually really liked the plane overall. They liked the plane more than American pilots, oddly enough. But Americans themselves didn't have great success with the plane. And I don't even think that their KD ratios over the Eastern Front being used by Russian pilots were that great either. So we're going to put that in B tier. Okay, now we have the last model, Supermarine Spitfire. We are going to put that again in S tier. The British upgraded the Spitfire consistently throughout the entire war, and obviously, as you can tell by now, we're on something like the 14th variant of the original Spitfire. And these planes were juggernauts by the end of the war. They had gotten every ounce of horsepower they could possibly get out of the Rolls-Royce Merlin and done everything they possibly could with this plane to streamline it and make it a better fighting machine. And they did that. They had really taken it to a whole nother level. So Supermarine Spitfire goes in, and of course it was a great plane to begin with. So it goes in S tier. All right, Vought F4U Corsair. This is going to go in my Hall of Fame. Something not many people know. The Vought F4U Corsair holds the record as a fighting system with the highest kill-death ratio in the history of warfare in the Pacific theater of World War II. For every one Corsair shot down by enemy actions, Corsairs shot down 10 enemy fighters. That is a 10-to-1 KD. Nothing else, no other fighter, no other tank, no other anything had that kind of kill death. It goes in the Hall of Fame. And not only that, but the kind of distinctive gull wing design that was employed to be able to get these on carriers is also really interesting and makes the plane very distinctive. Okay, and now our last two fighters, we have the Yak-3 and the Yak-9. I'm going to put the Yak-9 in... I'm going to put both of these in A tier. These are the last of the Yakolov family. Very, very good fighters. They didn't quite have the top speeds of some of the best aircraft here, which is what I'm going to ding them for to put them on A. But otherwise, and their armament was somewhat light, but otherwise excellent aircraft, very maneuverable, and some of the best planes that the Russians produced during the Second World War. Of course, the LA-7, I think, was slightly better. Also had more armament, which is why I'm going to put this, which is why this deserves to be an S. So, yeah, I think that's what we got. Obviously, nothing in F. As you can see, compared to the first tier list, there's a lot more planes in the S and A tier and a lot fewer in the lower tiers. And that's because, as you would expect, throughout the war, countries and the military-industrial complex in these nations figured out by, speaking to pilots with firsthand experience and, figuring out in real time flaws with the aircraft, how to make them better. And it really showed because, as you can tell, a ton of aircraft produced by every country are in these upper tiers. By the end of the war, most nations had gotten the most they possibly could out of piston engines. So, yeah, this is my tier list. Thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll get back to you guys soon.